Welcome to the show and happy Thanksgiving. Hard to believe that it's already here. Have a great show planned for you this week. Later on, I'll have with me NFL Hall of Famer Mel Blount. So excited to have him on the show. But first, we'll start with some of our usual features. First of all, talk about some things going on here in the community. And as we wrap up November, it's hard to believe, but basketball season is upon us. Some high school teams already underway, some practicing, some have played some games on the girls' side. But everybody will be underway here pretty soon. And one of my favorite sports to watch, even though I'm kind of a football guy at heart and played football, coached football for a number of years, and now still coach youth football, I really enjoy basketball for a number of reasons. It's a fast-paced game. It's inside. You don't have to worry about the weather. It's usually over relatively quickly. So I really enjoy watching basketball. But one of the things I enjoy most about it is that here in this valley, it's really continued to grow and grow. So many kids now are not only playing for the youth leagues at the YMCA, their school teams, but it's starting to be more and more travel basketball going on, and I've just really enjoyed seeing so many kids get so much out of it. And I think anytime a kid's passionate about anything, whether it be basketball, whether it be music, or whatever it may be, if they're passionate about something involved with that, it certainly is something to keep them busy, keep them doing the right things, and I see a lot of that coming from the game of basketball. So I always enjoy that time of year to support those kids or whatever they may be doing during the winter months. But basketball is one of my favorites. Give you a little legal tip here this week. As we approach the Christmas shopping season, it's about products, and that sometimes there are some defective products out there. And some products you don't really need to research before you go out and buy them. But there are some things you really want to do your homework on. Make sure that it's a safe product. There are customer reviews, there are safety reviews. A lot of that's now available online. That maybe 20 years ago, when you went to buy a product, you only knew kind of what was, you could read about it maybe in a magazine perhaps, or the newspaper, or maybe even just what it said on the box, which wasn't always necessarily accurate, still isn't always accurate. But now, with the online information that we have available to us, you can really get a good feel for whether a product's safe or not, which is a good idea, especially when buying gifts for kids. A good idea for adults too. But I've seen so many times over the years as a lawyer where defective products have seriously injured someone. Usually not kids' toys, although I have seen a few on occasion, but usually more adult-type things. But really check out products, see which company puts out the safest product. There sometimes is a little bit of difference in cost, but usually not much. So get the one that's a little bit safer, even if you have to spend a couple bucks more if you're able to afford it, because you could really help someone. Some of these cases we've handled, and they're difficult cases, because usually when we handle those types of cases, we're going against some major national manufacturer that puts a ton of money into protecting its product because they don't want it to be deemed to be unsafe, but sometimes they just are. And sadly, oftentimes they could have spent another couple bucks to have the safer feature in it or something like that, and they don't do it because they feel like it's going to cost them more money to make it. But really check that out, and hopefully no one gets injured, and you can keep everybody safe. Give a little quote here, and I think this is an appropriate one for this weekend, this time of year. This comes from Michael Strahan, and he said, "That's one of the great things about Thanksgiving, football's on." And I was thinking about that quote when I saw it, and it's so true. I mean, it's really the only holiday that we have where we get together with family and we're sitting around in the house and around the table and everything, and there's some football on. I mean, at Christmas, you don't usually have any type of football on Christmas Day. You don't usually have it on Labor Day because Labor Day is on a Monday. So during the span of football season, you really don't get that day where everybody's sitting around together and talking, and you can watch some football and talk about that too, other than Thanksgiving. And it's certainly why it's one of my favorite holidays. I always enjoyed doing that really my whole life. Even when I was younger, we'd go to my grandparents' house and we'd, everybody be sitting around talking about football, watching, arguing about which team's best, and especially this time of year when you're headed toward the playoffs in the NFL, you're headed toward now the college football playoffs, and debating which teams should be in, which teams shouldn't be in. So it's a really a fun holiday for a number of reasons, to not only give thanks for what we have, not only to be with family and friends, but also because we do get to watch football. And we're going to be talking all about football after we take our break here. I'm going to have with me NFL Hall of Famer Mel Blount. You won't want to miss that. We'll talk all about his career, what the NFL is like today, and we'll even talk about a big rule change that was made back in the 70s because of him. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
May this Thanksgiving bring you and your family many blessings. You can love what you drive.
Sunset Motors continues to be the 2019 Ohio Valley leader in Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, and Dodge sales. Now get employee pricing plus at the Black Friday sales event. Save over $12,500 on a new Bighorn 1500 or lease one for just $299 per month. Get a new Cherokee for just $284 per month or an all-new Gladiator Sport for $379 per month.
You can love what you drive at Sunset.
May this Thanksgiving bring you and your family many blessings.
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and I am really excited about this week's guest. It is NFL Hall of Famer, 5-time Pro Bowler, former NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 1975, and Pittsburgh Steeler Mel Blount. Mel, thanks for being here on the show.
Jamie, it's a pleasure.
Well,
good to be here with you.
You know, talking about your career and, you know, all those accolades, you know, 4 Super Bowl wins, you know, 5 times in the Pro Bowl, NFL Defensive Player of the Year, and what a lot of people don't realize is you really transformed the game in a lot of ways. I mean, you were a corner, defensive corner, who's 6'4" back in the 70s. Now, there's not many 6'4" corners going around there today. I don't know if there's any, but 6'4" back then is probably like 6'7", 6'8" today. And you know, back when you first started your career, the defensive rules were very different. You could be very physical with the receivers.
Exactly, and you know, it's interesting. When I came out of college, I really didn't know how to play zone defense because the only thing we played in college was man-to-man. And we had a coach, he said, I don't care where he goes. If he goes to the bathroom, you go with him. You know, we just played man. And so when I got into the league, when I came to Pittsburgh, I was a man-to-man guy. I could play man-to-man and really had to learn how to, you know, the whole concept of zone, playing zone, and, you know, because you never turn a receiver loose when I was in college. You stay with him. And so it was a different game, a lot more physical, and the rules were different. And so, you know, we just got after people. And then, you know, we came to a team. You got to think about this. The Pittsburgh Steelers won 1 game in 1969. That was Joe Green's first year. And then Chuck Noll drafted Bradshaw #1, drafted Ron Shanklin was the wide receiver #2, and I was drafted #3. And we were picking first that year because of our record. And so that, with Joe Green and that 1970 draft, was kind of the building block of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then we really hit the jackpot in 1974 when we got Swan and Stallworth and Lambert and Mike Webster, and those are all Hall of Famers out of that draft.
You know, looking at yourself, you know, youngest of 11 children, growing up on a farm down in Georgia.
Yeah.
You go to a school that a lot of people hadn't really even heard of in Southern, down in Louisiana,
Right.
you know, historically black college there. And, you know, to be drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Professional Football League, I mean, what was that like as a, you know, as a young guy, you know, to be drafted by the Steelers and going to the NFL, coming from that background?
Yeah, it was a cultural shock. And I mean that because, you know, I grew up doing segregation in the South and went to an all-black high school. I went to an all-black college at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And, you know, the 60s, you know, this country was going through a lot of changes in the 60s. You know, they shot Kennedy in 1963, and then 68 they killed King. So it was a lot of turmoil, a lot of things happening in this country. And so back to my situation was, you know, I grew up in all of that in the South. I experienced it. I experienced segregation and all the things that came with it. And so when I came to Pittsburgh, being drafted in 1970, here I am coming out of the 60s into the 70s. And so I never played with white players. I'd never been coached by a white person. And so all of that was an adjustment. But I think the one thing I can say about Chuck Noll is that Chuck Noll didn't see color, he saw talent. And we never really had a problem, you know, in the 70s or any time I was with the Steelers. There was never any problems. We had great players, but we had great people, and I think that's important. And I remember a reporter asking Chuck Noll, how do you win like this? How do you win all these games? And Chuck Noll said, you win with great people. He didn't say you win with great athletes. You win with great people, and I think, you know, when you look at the Antonio Brown situation, and I understand now what he meant when he said you win with great people.
You know, we'll talk a little bit about some of the situations that have happened in the NFL maybe a little bit later on here in this segment, but talking about, you know, you coming into the league in the 70s, you know, and we talked a little about the physical play.
Right.
You know, you and some of your teammates became so dominant, particularly you at corner, that in 1978 they actually made a rule change that became known as the Mel Blount rule, which was today people are so used to seeing it that, you know, the defensive back can't, you know, make contact with the receiver after you're more than 5 yards down the field.
Exactly.
But that rule was really put into place because you were so physical and so dominant in beating up the receivers that they had to make a rule change.
Well, you know, it's true. But the thing about, everybody talk about my height, but the thing that I had, and you got to have that to play that position, is speed. I mean, you had to be able to run, and I could run, and I was strong, and I was physical, and I did. I would always be right on top of receiver until the ball, and the rule back then was once the ball was in the air, you couldn't touch the guy. But it just really disrupted the timing with the quarterback and the receiver. And I'll never forget, it was a Monday night game against Cincinnati. You know, and Paul Brown was on that competition committee, and he had to face us twice a year. And I remember him going, and I was told this from people in the front office of the Steelers, that Paul Brown was the one that was complaining about the way I played, and they changed that rule. Well, when they changed the rule, it really, to me, it was an insult. But now the older I get and I hear my kids talk about it, my grandkids, you know, I'm saying, man, that's pretty cool, you know, for them to name a rule after you. But at the time, I was like, oh, so y'all think I can't play unless we play this way? And then we went on and won 2 more Super Bowls after they changed that rule.
Yeah, got the last laugh on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you played against some great players in that era, you know, the 1970s, so much, you know, great football in the NFL that, you know, I wasn't even born until 75, so a lot of those guys I have to read about or watch old highlights, things like that. But, you know, from you, greatest offensive player that you played against?
Man, that's tough. There were so many great players. You know, I think about Paul Warfield, who's a Hall of Famer, and then you got Charlie Joyner, who is a Hall of Famer, played for, in fact, he stayed in our conference until he went to San Diego. He started out at Houston. He went to Grambling, started out at Houston, then went to Cincinnati, and he wound up, his career ended in San Diego. But great player, great, you know, just route runners, man. Those guys were so precise in running their routes. And, you know, but the greatest, when you talk about the overall greatest offensive player, whether it was quarterback or wide receiver, that's a tough one, man, because, I mean, I played against Earl Campbell, and everybody knew what kind of, this guy was a beast. And then, you know, Stabler, who was a great quarterback. But, you know, with me being out there on that corner, I know that Warfield, you know, he was incredible. And Ohio State guy, and he and I are good friends now because we're all in that club together. We're all in that Hall of Fame club, and we get a chance to talk about old games. And but he was a great player.
We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll continue speaking with Mel Blount about his career and also the NFL today. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Disasters happen. Pick the team that takes care of them all. Powered by offices in Wheeling, Morgantown, and Pittsburgh, Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration is ready to handle any size emergency at a moment's notice. We have the right people, knowledge, and equipment to respond 24 hours a day.
I'm Neil Brown. When disaster strikes your home or business, tell your insurance provider you prefer the restoration company the Mountaineers call, Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration.
When reviewing your oil and gas offers or royalty check statements, do you wonder, am I being offered a fair amount? Do I feel comfortable reading the statement? Do I have peace of mind? If you answered no to these questions, you need Bordas Mineral Management. Our passion is helping mineral owners protect and expand their mineral wealth. Our examiners tell you whether you're being treated fairly and getting paid what is rightfully yours. Bordas Mineral Management. Be protected. Have peace of mind.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest this week, NFL Hall of Famer and Pittsburgh Steeler Mel Blount. And, talking about your career a bit, I want to turn a little bit to today's NFL. And, of course, the Steelers play the Browns this weekend on Sunday, and a lot of bad blood coming out of that game a couple weeks ago. And,
Yeah.
The teams that you were on were known for tough defense. The steel curtain, knock your heads off, But have you ever seen anything like the incident involving Myles Garrett where somebody takes a helmet, hits somebody in the bare head with it like we saw a couple weeks ago?
I have never seen anything like that. And as a player, a former player, I was embarrassed. I mean, it really was an insult to the game. I think it really set the game back, people's perception of the players and what football is all about. And it was just unfortunate. And Myles Garrett is a great player. I mean, I don't know him as a person, but when you see him on tape, he's a great player. And it just was uncalled for, and I think the penalty is justified. I really do, and I don't care. He said that there were some racial slurs, but there should be nothing that calls you as a professional athlete to act like that. And, we're fortunate that it wasn't worse than what it was, because had that helmet been turned the other way and he hit with the crown of his helmet, he could have did some serious damage to this player. And Mason Rudolph, I just think was fortunate, and it's sad.
So the teams play this Sunday. So you've been in NFL locker rooms so many times over the years. I mean, how does that affect this week's game and the mindset of the teams headed into this week's game?
Well, look, these guys are professionals, and I think, regardless to all the hype, all the noise outside, I think once those guys get on the field, they're going to play football, and they'll be out there, trying to win the game, because this is a big game for both teams. They're fighting for a wild card spot, and I think it's going to be a good game. Now, I'm sure the level of intensity might be a little bit higher, but I don't think what happened 2 weeks ago is going to have any effect on this game coming up.
Interestingly, Mason Rudolph not expected to, not going to be the starter, of course. Coach Tomlin's announced that Devlin Hodges will start at quarterback in this game, so that maybe that takes a little bit of the element out. I don't think that's necessarily the goal, but it may just happen. But what do you think for the rest of the year with the Steelers here? Obviously, a lot of injuries this year, but with Ben being hurt, Stephon Tuitt, being lost for the year, Juju having some injuries, James Conner, a lot of injuries to contend with. But what do you think's the upside for the rest of this season?
Well, it's going to be tough sledding. In my opinion, I think anytime you lose your quarterback, it changes everything. And with Ben not being there, and then, when you look at that offense, Juju, he hasn't really, had a great year, and he's hurt. Connor's, I'm not sure if he can stay healthy. He seems to get banged up every year. So I just think it's going to be tough. Now, even when you got all your players, it's tough. And with the injuries that they're having, it's going to be tough. Now, I think they're in good shape for this game, but going forward, they're going to have some games. Baltimore, I mean, if you had all your players, it's going to be tough to beat Baltimore because of the way they're playing. But I just think the Steelers have a tough road in front of them.
You mentioned Baltimore. Let's talk about them for a minute. Lamar Jackson. I mean, really kind of changing the way, in some respects, the quarterback position's being played. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, you didn't see necessarily guys like that not only in your era, but really even up until just recently, that really have that dynamic ability to create plays with their feet and with their arms. I mean, we've seen mobile quarterbacks, but this is a whole new level.
Well, it was unfortunate how they had graded Lamar Jackson coming out. Everybody was talking about the talking about the kid in Cleveland.
Baker Mayfield.
Mayfield, and they was talking about the kid with the Jets. And so when you look at that group of quarterbacks that came out, Lamar Jackson was at the bottom, and somebody even had him as a third-round pick. Well, Ozzie Newsome, great general manager with the Ravens, he went up and got this kid the last pick in that first round. And I saw Ozzie at the Hall of Fame that year, and I said, I'm really glad you all gave that kid a shot. Now, I didn't know he was going to be what he's turned out to be. But the NFL right now has not seen a player at that position like Lamar Jackson. And it's going to take them a while to catch up with him, because he's a smart kid. He's got talent. He's got something that you can't coach, and that's speed. And when you watch him run, it's like he's a adult out there running against kids. Yeah. And it's really something special. And what we saw against the Rams, him going to Los Angeles, making that debut on Monday Night Football was pretty special. And I think the telltale would be when they play the 49ers this week, and we'll see what happened. But I just think he's special. And those kind of athletes don't come along every year. And so, unfortunately, he's in our division, and we're going to have to deal with him.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
Before we have to take a break, I just want to ask you, you've got the Mel Blount Youth Home that you've been doing for a couple decades now, and
yeah.
Every April you have a big event up in Pittsburgh, a big fundraiser, and I would say it's one of the greatest events in Pittsburgh. A lot of former players, you honor somebody. Doing that again this year, the first Friday in April, and people can sponsor that and be a part of it, or buy tickets and go to that, of course.
Right. Well, first of all, let me just thank Bordas and Bordas. Thank you for being one of our sponsors, and I know you've been sponsoring us for several years now. But it's a great event, and what we do, we raise money to keep the program going. We work with a lot of kids, and we have kids there, as you've seen, kids there. They're serving. These are kids that we work with in our programs, and so. We've been doing this now for 21 years. This will be our 22nd year. It's just amazing how time has gone. But it's a great event. It's a big part of our budget, the funds that we raise. It allows us to reach out to kids and run a lot of summer programs during the summer. And one of our biggest events, and we have sometimes 120, 150 kids there, is still a rookie day at the boys' home. And we've had kids from Lindsley have had their kids up there that plays football, and so we are reaching out in the community, basically trying to help kids, giving them opportunities, the skill set to become productive citizens, and so we're very grateful for all of our sponsors, and and I think we're making a difference in the community.
Well, God bless you for doing that, and I really appreciate being here on the show today, and hope you and your family have a really wonderful Thanksgiving.
It's been
weekend.
Awesome, Jamie.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
You.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll do a brief recap on sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Hi, Banks did great today. He looks great after his spa day.
For being such a good boy, we'll take these two.
Great.
Thanks to my free Casasa cashback checking account from Belmont Savings Bank, my Casasa cash is paying for my dog's treats.
Casasa pays you cash back on everyday debit card purchases, plus refunds on ATM withdrawal fees nationwide. Open your account today at Belmont Savings Bank to take back banking and enjoy monthly cash rewards with Casasa.
A world of Christmas wonder awaits at Ogilvy in Wheeling, West Virginia. Experience the magic of the season.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports, and we'll start in the city of Pittsburgh, where the Pittsburgh Pirates have named a new manager this week. Derek Shelton will be the new manager for the Pirates. He is was the bench coach for the Minnesota Twins most recently. He's also been the hitting coach for them in the past, also hitting coach for the Rays, the Indians. And, he's had a lot of success in that realm, but really not a lot of experience as being a manager. Had a couple minor league stints almost 20 years ago, but see if he can turn things around. The Pirates seem optimistic that he's the right guy for the job, so we'll keep an eye on that and talk about that as the winter months progress here. But let's turn to football, staying in the city of Pittsburgh. And the Steelers, of course, will be playing the Browns this week, as Mel Blount and I discussed, and the intensity could be a little bit higher than usual. Steelers coming off of a 16-10 win over the Cincinnati Bengals, where Devlin Hodges had to come in at quarterback in relief. Mason Rudolph pulled out of the game early in the second half. After struggling a bit, and really the week before, not doing well either. And so now the Steelers face the Browns in really kind of a must-win game at Heinz Field. Steelers sitting at 6-5 with 5 games left in the regular season. I think they really need to go 4-1 to get to 10 wins to stay in that wild card position. Right now they've got the second wild card spot. But, with games against the Ravens left, games against the Bills left, really this turns this into a must-win game. The big hope is the last game of the season against the Ravens. Perhaps the Ravens will be sitting starters if they don't have a chance to get home field throughout the playoffs. But I think this week the Steelers win this one. Just so much emotion involved in the home game. Steelers take this one to go to 7-5 and keep pace in the wild card race. Let's turn to your college football Saturday. Big game at noon. Number 1 now, Ohio State at number 13, Michigan. That game's on Fox. In the preseason on this show, I said that this would be the year that Michigan beats Ohio State. Jim Harbaugh hasn't beaten the Buckeyes yet since he's been at Michigan. This game's at the Big House, and Ohio State has not played really anyone good on the road. They got Penn State at home. They got Wisconsin at home, Michigan State, Cincinnati, all home games. The Wolverines pull off the upset at Michigan. Michigan wins this one over Ohio State. And at 3:30, the Iron Bowl, number 5 Alabama, number 15 Auburn. No Tua, but this is the last chance for Alabama to impress the playoff committee. They won't be in the SEC title game this year. Alabama wins. Auburn just doesn't have enough offense. Also at 3:30, number 12 Wisconsin at number 8 Minnesota, right here in WTRF on ABC. College game days there. Minnesota's having a special season. It's determined who will play for the Big Ten title. Michigan wins this one at home. And then at 7 o'clock on ESPN, Texas A&M at number 2 LSU. LSU, too much talent. Joe Burrow, too good. LSU wins that one. 8 o'clock, the nightcap on Fox. Number 7, Oklahoma at number 21, Oklahoma State. Bedlam, this game's called. Oklahoma, just too much talent with Jalen Hurts and CeeDee Lamb. The Oklahoma defense has improved. The Sooners win this one, and I don't think it's close. That's all the time we have this week. Thanks for joining in. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving weekend. We'll see you next time on The Jamie Bordas Show.